right, well, welcome.
Thank you. On? Okay. Yes. Very happy to be here. Really happy, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Excellent. Well, we're going to dig into some questions that have been submitted by this audience. So you may hear some of the questions if you did share a question before, you might hear your question be asked, and then at the end we'll try to open it up for some audience Q&A. But first, we'd just love to hear directly from you. Can you tell us more about the vision for Ark Invest?
Sure. I want to make sure I'm talking to everyone. So I started Ark out of frustration, actually, with the traditional asset management world. Because of the tech and telecom bust, and even more so after 2008 and 9, the meltdown, we saw tremendous risk aversion move into the markets. And it was characterized by worshiping at the almighty altar of the index, which is what all portfolio managers and analysts are compensated to beat. So they just got closer and closer to their benchmarks. And we have the rise of quantitative research. Quantitative research, at the center of it, is the index, or various indexes. Many people don't understand that, but implicit in hiring more and more quantitative research analysts, our industry was forcing more and more portfolio managers, or trying to at least, into benchmarks. And we weren't doing that. We became more and more of an odd duck. Now, in the beginning, I was fine at my last firm because they wanted to bring someone in from the outside for the first time as a portfolio manager to bring new DNA into the firm. But 3 management changes later, they were back to the old world, and I just and they wanted to risk complete my funds by taking 1/3 of the funds away from me and putting them into the S&P 500. Can you imagine buying an ARK fund and someone had sneakily put, it would be hard to do so since we're so transparent, but put 1/3 of it into the S&P 500? That's not what you're paying for, right? But so I wouldn't do it. And so we agreed to disagree, philosophical differences, which was great. I got to quit and keep my deferred comp and start ARK. And so ARK was born, as many new businesses are, out of frustration and out of the sense that, there's a huge unmet need out there, and it's still there. Because of this movement towards quantitative and indexes, the average pension fund, institution, not retail, retail's much better, the individual investor, but the average institution is very short innovation because indexes are where they are because of what has happened in the past, and the names at the top of the indexes are there because of past success. What is disruptive innovation all about? It's about disrupting the traditional world order. And we saw, I know I'm going on with this, but I'm probably covering some, we saw and see 5 major innovation platforms today, you mentioned them, Lakshmi, involving 14 different technologies, all of which are entering prime time for exponential growth trajectories, the likes of which we've never seen before. The seeds for these 5 were all planted during the 20 years that ended in the tech and telecom bubble. And that bubble turned into a bust because too many dreamers, too much capital chased too few opportunities about 20 years before their time, and the rest is history. And that is why there is such a fear of a strategy like ours. They're living their last nightmare. No, 2 nightmares ago, right? They're living that. There's a lot of muscle memory here. This is an ideal time to start a firm like this And the other thing I want to emphasize about these 5 platforms, and we're doing a lot of work on this. Brett Winton, our Director of Research, and I are writing a paper together, and it has to do with the convergence between and among these technologies. So you've got S-curves feeding S-curves feeding S-curves. So if you think an S-curve has represents exponential growth, what is one feeding the other going to do? We're trying to help people understand how profound the changes are going to be. And the more research, when I started the firm, this was a strong sense. We've done a lot of research, but with the breakthrough of deep learning and the explosion in artificial intelligence, we think the growth opportunities are going to be explosive, and also the disruptions are going to mean a lot of chaos out there. It's going to be a confusing time. And so we felt, and this is our research ecosystem, we felt it was very important to try and educate, because our world had stopped educating investors about innovation after the tech and telecom bust. Technology or innovation is very volatile, and it is. But volatility on the upside is great, right? So as you all in this room know from what's going on in the crypto world. So it's been, that we give away our research through social media, and I think the regulators are very interested in what we're doing because they like transparency. They like transparency, which is, but our competitors are trying to figure out, how to put us back in the box, I think. And it's just not going to happen because, it's gone kind of viral.
I have so many questions from that. One, I just want to think about, so you mentioned the 5 platforms. This audience is particularly passionate about blockchain technologies. What did you see so early on in that platform to identify it as such for Ark Invest?
Well, we thought it was going to be a platform. Now, when we first started the firm, we had put both artificial intelligence and blockchain technology under the category of next generation internet. And as we were doing our research, many of you might know of Chris Bernisky. He was our first analyst at Ark, crypto analyst. We hired him as a next generation internet analyst. And he started doing some research on crypto, and then I couldn't get him to research anything else, and he wrote a book. I don't know if it's, I should remember, it's about crypto assets, Bitcoin and beyond. I forgot the exact, but he put out a framework for valuing Bitcoin as a starting point, and also the book also described why it was a new asset class, so the platform part of it is the technology part of it, right? And yet we had to fight in the early days, the traditional world saying, yeah, I get the blockchains, but this Bitcoin, and we're saying, oh man, this is like, this blockchain would be nothing but a highly inefficient database if it weren't for Bitcoin. But I think the research world has gone through that, and now we're dealing with a very interesting platform, and the convergence that we see, blockchain, and it's going to impact every sector, but we see the intersection of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence, importantly. You probably know of a hedge fund out there called Numerai. I don't know if you know of that, Numerai. So that's the intersection of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. So if you want to look it up, it's the first hedge fund that's based on blockchain technology. So data scientists are competing to put forth, introduce the best portfolio out there. And they're using all kinds of data signals, including genomics data in a way that I don't understand, but talk about bringing another convergence in. AI, blockchain technology, and genomics, DNA sequencing. So
That's all those 3 of your 5 platforms right there. That's amazing. One question from the crowd was really about how do you view the different aspects of how Bitcoin is being used? So one is an investable asset class, and 2 is an underlying financial payment system like what we're seeing in El Salvador. So curious about your thoughts just on how Bitcoin is being used today into the future.
Oh yeah, it's been wonderful. Did any of you hear Jack Dorsey yesterday on the quarterly earnings call? An analyst asked him, you've got Bitcoin on your platform, are you going to be putting other assets, other currencies, other assets on your platform? And he said, nope, and it was a quick no. He said, Bitcoin is the native currency of the internet. So yes, so Square's Cash App, crypto, Bitcoin. One of the reasons I think Jack, who had been studying this for years, did or started studying because he said, I gotta get out from under these regulators around the world because, you know, they're not letting Cash App enter. And so he's in studying Bitcoin, I thought, you know, he obviously is not surprised by what's happening in El Salvador. His idea is to, through the Bitcoin blockchain, basically infiltrate other countries, especially emerging markets, to rescue people from, you know, irresponsible monetary regimes and corruption, and, you know, really salvage their purchasing power and enhance their living. I think it's going to be used as a means of exchange more in emerging markets, right, where the monetary regimes are unstable if they exist at all, right? But then as a store of value in the developed world, a hedge, an insurance policy against seizure of assets, you know, many people say that would never happen here. Well, you know, gold basically made it illegal to own, did I say gold?
Gold,
Yeah. In the United States, the U.S. Made it illegal to own gold in the 30s. So it has happened here before, and you never know when this sort of thing is going to happen. So store of value, you know, 5%. If all of, you know, the wealthy people in the world did that, that would add hundreds of thousands of dollars to Bitcoin's value, I think.
You mentioned the intersection of technologies, blockchain, AI, genomics. What other uses or use cases of blockchain technology are you finding interesting right now?
Well, I know NFTs are all the rage and so interesting. So the way we look at Bitcoin is it's the first global private monetary system ever, right? The way we look at NFTs is this is the beginning of the first global private property system. Now, you can say money is property too. So there's now, Bitcoin is fungible, and NFTs are non-fungible, and provide the ability to bring real scarcity into the digital asset ecosystem. And you know, our next generation internet analyst, the one who didn't go to crypto, is now into NFTs. So he owns at least 41 of them. So he's spending a lot of time in the space. And you know, it's a very interesting phenomenon because in 08-09, after that crash and near-death experience in the financial markets, I remember a lot of us lost a lot of our status symbols by design. Like I had a beautiful gold watch It would look like a bracelet. And during that debacle, I mean, I couldn't go around wearing it. I just couldn't. And I still don't. You can see how. But what's going on now, interestingly, is the emergence of an indication of status in the digital ecosystem. So I think the emergence of status for a lot of millennials is more in the digital space than it is in the physical space. In fact, they would much prefer to buy an NFT or let's see, Fortnite. What are the skins? Yes, thank you. Yeah, yes, your son, my son. So right, you know, I don't know if Gucci's in there yet. Probably they're all moving into that realm. And I said to our team, because these are all young people, many of them just have coming in. I said, wait a minute, are status symbols coming back? And it's like, yeah, they are in the NFT space. You know, this is the way we want to spend our time. It's fun, it's creative. And I thought, wow, okay, that's really interesting. I don't know if Yassine is still here. I think he had to go to the airport. Oh, is he? Yeah. You'll see on Yassine's on his tweet threads a picture of his empty apartment, except for a futon on the ground and a television. I think you had over there, and the statement that he'd much prefer to invest in Bitcoin and beyond than actually live comfortably right now. Or that was when you first joined ARK. I think. What does your apartment look like now, Yassine? So it's an interesting evolution. A whole new world is evolving. And I know many people, my partner included, saying like, NFTs, that's ridiculous. You can just copy them, and they don't understand, right, this new world.
Yeah. And speaking of the new world, and you referenced before just how so much of the business world and financial institutions are backwards thinking. And at what point will people catch up? At what point will business catch up? And are you seeing some advancements within traditional enterprise businesses as it relates to blockchain technology and incorporating those into how they conduct what they do?
A lot of people are thinking about it, especially now. You know, Jamie Dimon in the day was so against Bitcoin in particular, until his daughter converted him, I think. And I'm not even sure if he was a full convert to Bitcoin, but because then he issued some JP Morgan coin or something. There's a lot of research. You know, it's interesting. We've talked to a few digital asset experts within financial institutions. These are big institutions. The DNA difference is so wide, stark, thank you, stark, that they'll never be able to converge. I honestly don't think they will. And you know, even fintech. JP Morgan said we should have bought Square, you know, many years ago, right? Yes, you should have, and left it alone, right? Because that's the only way you have a shot. And I think the same is true here. You see what Square's doing with its Bitcoin team. You know, it has nothing to do with Square, but he wants to fuel this economy. And have Square be a part of it, that crypto team does not report to anyone but Jack. I don't think. I mean, there is one leader, Steve Lee might be involved there. I think Yassine left, but they just want that to flourish, and they don't want the Square ecosystem to impact it at all. That's the only way to do it. Now, what can they do? I think in order to learn more about what's going to happen, they can diversify their cash into crypto, as you've seen Square and Tesla and MicroStrategy do. Nothing focuses the mind like taking a risk on it, you know, with your cash, which is supposed to be safe, right? So and yet, very few will do it, and the reason they won't is because of our accounting rules. Our accounting rules classify crypto on the balance sheet as an intangible asset. Intangible assets can only be written down. So if the mark-to-market is on the downside, you have to mark it down. If it's on the upside, you don't mark it up. It doesn't make any sense. And I know the SEC had something to say about that. Warning corporations, make sure you understand what you're doing here if you're going to diversify some of your cash into crypto. So it's interesting. That's what they should do, but I think the accounting and regulatory dynamic out there suggests that it'll be a while before they do.
Interesting reason why. I want to shift us to some of your other platforms and specifically artificial intelligence. I'm very curious what right now is exciting you within your AI platform.
Okay, AI gives companies the opportunity, or DAOs, but gives the opportunity to move into winner-take-most markets. So if we think about why is Tesla in the best position to dominate, certainly in the United States, the autonomous taxi network world, it is because, first of all, it developed its own chip. And here, now I'm talking about Tesla. I'm always talking about Tesla. You asked me about artificial intelligence, but this is a good illustration. So Tesla had the foresight, just like Steve Jobs at Apple had the foresight to design Apple's chip so that he could turn a cell phone into a smartphone where we could actually access the internet. It was like, boy, was that an aha moment for me. Nokia, Ericsson, and Motorola lost that market to Apple from that one decision. Tesla's done the same in AI, and you're going to see this from a lot of companies. They're going to design their own AI chip because it demands deep domain expertise, right? So Tesla did that, and when our analyst at the time looked at the specs, he had worked at NVIDIA. He said, oh my gosh, Tesla's 4 years ahead of NVIDIA. Not in terms of autonomous automobile, because NVIDIA is hostage to the design cycles of the auto industry, which were at that time were 4 to 5 years, and Tesla's like annual, right? So why is Tesla winning? AI chip first, and so you'll see a lot of companies do that. And the second is the data. Tesla has more data, real world data. You cannot do this just with simulations. Real world data of the roads around the world than anyone out there. And Elon, Tesla, has more than 1.5 million robots, my Model 3 being one of them, gathering data every day to look for corner cases. And now I just heard the story, one of the people on our brainstorm today told us what it's like to be in the pilot test for full self-driving. And he got a 99 on his driving score, so he was one of the chosen few. And he said when it works, it's like unbelievable. When it doesn't work, you think you're gonna die. So what they now have are 2 buttons for these ones doing the pilot, and every time there's a near-death experience, you have to hit it, because that's a corner case right there. And so they're getting even better high-quality data from more people who are willing to take that risk, right?
I almost died, better log it.
So that they'll understand the corner cases better than anyone out there. I don't care if it's Google. Google's trying to do this with simulation. It will not work. Cruise automation, pilot test in a few cities, not scalable. We're going to see a lot. You're going to see in the healthcare space, in AI, a big disconnect out there. So Tesla was a big disconnect in the auto industry. Disconnect in the healthcare industries. In the healthcare industry, no one really wants to analyze labs. Labs have been commoditized, right? Well, the labs of the future are going to be in a winner-take-most category. So Invitae is our pick there. It has the best AI expertise, has been paying up to import them, and analysts don't like that, right? They're sacrificing short-term profitability for long-term gains. We think they have the most high-quality genomics data out there because of how they've set up their business, including giving it away. They're collecting all this data. They work with the National Epilepsy Foundation, so they're giving their testing away to gather the data to understand, and especially with cancer, understand what the dynamics are in cancer, how the genome sets up to move into a position of a mutation, which is the first manifestation of cancer, that first cell replication. The body sets up to do that. Wouldn't it be nice to catch cancer before it hits stage 1? I used to say, wouldn't it be nice to catch cancer in stage 1? Because we thought that's what we're seeing with AI, and there's a company called Freenome out there. Fabulous company. I've talked to Charlie Roberts. It's a chief innovation officer, but a founder. And he believes that's possible now. And his cancer screening test, it's a liquid biopsy, which means just a blood test, is able to diagnose pancreatic cancer in stage 1. Which it's the deadliest. Once you found it, there's very little time left. Yeah.
That's incredible. So I hope you'll indulge us. I'd love to dig in a little bit to Tampa Bay. And you picked us. You picked Tampa, St. Pete, and that's incredible. What about this area attracted you to make such a big decision?
Well, there are lots of reasons. I think what clinched it for our young employees, and most of them are, is first of all a buy. There's a lot of investment into the Tampa Bay region taking place. Jeff Finnick, you and Bark Collective, we took a tour. This was one of the clinchers, believe it or not. It's like, oh wow. I thought Florida was for old people, And by the way, so did I. As I was growing up, I said to myself many times, I will never move to Florida. I will never move to Florida, and here I am, So that was one, going down Central Avenue, it just for our chief marketing officer, who probably was the biggest opponent of the move. I could see his mind turned around, and he could see the possibilities. He's been to South by Southwest in Austin, and has seen what that has done for that region. He was thinking, this feels like the next Austin. And as soon as he verbalized that, I knew we had him. Because he's very creative, and we'd like to get very involved with the community in many ways. We do a Big Ideas Summit every year. I don't know if you know of our Big Ideas. We put it out every January. I think, so we'll put it out as usual in January, but it would be wonderful. It'll be about the time our permanent office opens up in the third quarter of next year. It would be wonderful to host a summit here and bring the whole Tampa Bay region in, and then build it from there. Because what are we trying to do with big ideas generally, and with our social strategy of giving our research away? We're trying to educate parents, grandparents, students, children, how their lives are going to change, right? How their lives are going to change, and how important it is to get on the right side of change. I've also set up an innovation foundation, which we will be headquartering here in the St. Petersburg, but I call it the Tampa Bay region, Tampa Bay, because we want to introduce a curriculum that is education through the lens of innovation, again, to inspire children, starting at the toddler stage, through high school. Because just like the financial system, the financial services world, broken, our healthcare, our education system needs some fixing. I don't want to say it's broken, but I think it needs some DNA.
It's broken.
Great if Tampa Bay was a beacon, where people come here to figure out how their lives really are going to change, or to learn how their lives. And I was speaking with Walter, who's helped put on this conference and is dedicating himself to educating through the lens of innovation. So I just met him today, and I'm just like, wow, one door opening after another, and the welcome we've gotten here has been just incredible. It's been tremendous and so warm, so genuine.
We love you, Cathie.
One last question before we open it up for questions from this audience. So start priming your questions. This is your warning. But not everyone is in attendance today is from Florida, but many of us are. Well, now that you're here, we're here, what's the best way for this group to engage with you and your team?
Well, first of all, follow us on Twitter, and if you think we are making a mistake in our assumptions, let us know. That honestly, since research is our lifeblood, that would be hugely important, and it is how we have met so many interesting innovators. They catch a mistake and they're saying, hey, and it's why I love our ecosystem. We've got the innovators out there who are actually heads down innovating, telling us where we're wrong. And they're the ones we should be telling. It shouldn't be the sell side, the brokers. They don't know anything about this. It's the innovators. So that's the first thing. And I think maybe what I'd love to do is work with Embark Collective as we evolve the foundation to do something collectively to bring people from all parts of the country, maybe even world, to understand how their lives are going to change, how important it is to educate children in a way that inspires them to embrace this change and expect the change, not be thrown out there to the dogs, right? Yeah.
Well, Chris, are we good to start
the mic? Yeah. All right, we already got 2 hands up here. Speed round. Here we go. Go ahead, Tony.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for being a believer in this particular space. And one of the quotes that you're most famous for is, you love learning how the world works, but also how it's going to work. And so we've kind of used that. We have a lot of sayings we put on our t-shirts for the crypto killers, and things like that. But since I listened to you on the Faith Driven Investor podcast, how has that mantra driven you more to kind of continue to learn more about those things?
About crypto specifically?
About how,
innovation?
About innovation is through the education through the eyes of innovation, because we are big proponents for that.
Well, so I'm going to pull this into the spiritual realm then, right? Yeah. So one of the one of the things, I described why I thought the old financial world was broken, the benchmarking and so forth. And I used the words specifically worshiping at the altar of the almighty index. Well, I think that is the most massive misallocation of capital in the history of mankind. It is the most massive misallocation. We are not supposed to be investing in the past. We are supposed to be part of bringing about the new creation, right?
Yes.
The new creation. We are here to create, procreate, and create. Use our creativity and our minds and our wisdom and our passions to create the next big thing. And innovation solves problems. We have a lot of problems out there. And so if we have a matrix of our 14 technologies involved in these 5 innovation platforms, 14, against the 17 sustainable development goals that the United Nations has out there. The first one is eliminate poverty, right? And we fill in that matrix. The new technologies that are evolving are going to solve a lot of the world's problems. And I think that's proof that this is the new creation and this is the right way to go.
Awesome. Cal, next question, go ahead.
Thank you so much for your comments. Cathie, you talked about emerging markets, so that's been my primary interest for the last 10 years. So I've had an interest in both the BRICS markets, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then also secondly, I think EMEA, right? Particularly Africa. I did some work in Africa over the 12, 13 years ago. And so I find that when you compare the US market growth in cryptocurrencies, crypto market cap over the last 10 months went from roughly, I think, 800 billion to 2.75 trillion as of, last week. Okay, that's an interesting growth, 253%. But on the same time frame, the Indian cryptocurrency market went from, I don't know the exact numbers, but it grew by 650%. So I find that very interesting. So my question to you would be, if let's say I come up with a platform, and I have a very strong development team. I had just hired a CTO yesterday that specializes in AI, IoT, and blockchain. It's expert in all 3 areas. We also have some other big customers overseas. But would you consider a fledgling company like me to come over and pitch you guys for, let's say, just take a look at what we have?
Sure. We I'm actually going to bring, so they're on two levels. Do you want me to answer this question? No, please. Yes, okay. I thought you were calling us on this. So in 2 ways, we could contribute. We often will brainstorm, because I think this idea of convergence, which you're going after here, is really important. Traditional analysts in the financial world are not going to understand exactly how powerful what you're building is going to be, because they're looking at through the lens of the old world, right? And they're not, and that's because of how their responsibilities are organized. Their responsibilities are organized by sub-industry and even more specialized than that. Our analyst responsibilities are organized by technology, those 14 technologies, and they're generalists when it comes to the sectors and industries, right? Because these platforms and technologies will scale through most over time, the lower the costs go. So we'd like to brainstorm with people who are doing something like you're doing. You're embracing this convergence concept, and the brainstorm around that with us is a win-win. Now, in terms of actual investing in, we are right now only in the public equity markets. However, we have been looking for a way to be true to our brand, which is all about disruptive innovation, transparency, and democratization, so that we can bring the private world to the individual investors, who are, most are blocked from it because of this accredited investor. Well, that's un-American. That's ridiculous.
Cathie, I saw you interviewed one time, you talked a little bit about how you named your company and your faith. Would you be willing to say anything more about that?
Sure. Many people think that the ARK stand, because we put this particular acronym in our prospectus because we were told we had to, that if we wanted to have all caps for our name, the SEC would insist that it stands for something. So on the spur of the moment, like I just said, okay, active, research, knowledge. So that's went into the prospectus, because I wanted all caps. And that is what we're doing. However, the ARK came about in starting in 2006. My disaffection with this world of indexation, which hadn't even reached its peak, 08, 09 moved it into overdrive. I was just saying, I gotta get out of this. How do I get out of this? And what I do when I'm in a moment like that in my life, and probably should do this more often, but I just go to the Bible, open it up, and say, okay, God, just talk to me. Just talk to me. And I read the pages. And how many times in doing that did I stumble on, not so that it was there, and it wasn't the same page I was opening to every time, right? How many times? Ark of the Covenant. Many people think Ark has something to do with Noah's Ark, will save you, and all of that. That's not what it is. Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament accompanied the Israelites into battle. And I knew we were going to do battle. And this was the presence of God protecting the Israelites as they were doing battle. And I learned subsequently, I started having dreams about war and battles. And finally, you're in a battle of your life. You're not going to win this in the system. Get out. And then I spent 7 years trying to figure out how to do that.
We got a question up here, and then Erica, I'll come to you next, and we'll go front row. Go ahead.
Hey Cathie, how are you? Welcome to St. Pete and
Thank
Tampa.
you.
So I'm an ARK investor and love the fintech. So my question is around the wallet, something I know
Yes.
you're a big believer in.
Yes.
So the wallet, crypto, finance, just if you could elaborate. I've only seen a little bit of your clips and your thoughts on that, so I'd love to hear more about how you see that. And is that going to be another game of one or two main players like a PayPal with a wallet, a mega wallet?
Right.
And your thoughts on that?
Yes, yes. Well, as we came upon this idea, of course, WeChat Pay taught us a lot, right? And by our estimates, this wallet in our phone is going to be worth to the companies who are successful. And this is another winner take most. Is it going to be Square or PayPal? Our bet is on Square. We own some PayPal in the fintech, but you'll see we've reduced it because we think they're becoming quite reactive to Square. It has to be in the DNA, right? And so those are signals that we look to in the innovation space. Is this organic or is this reactive? And we're looking more for the organic plays. So the combination of wallets and DeFi, I think is going to transform the financial services ecosystem completely. And so we're going to be doing everything, including commerce. That's why this is going to be, and if you listen to Square's, you might want to listen to Square's earnings call because you'll see they are pivoting to commerce as well. They've got a two-sided marketplace, the consumer and the merchant, and now they're introducing commerce, and they're aiming, instead of, I forget how many, the number, so many transactions per week, they would like their wallet to be a daily, use it like we use our mobile phones. So the companies that get there are going to be incredibly valuable. And it's really interesting to watch this battle. This was Venmo's, so PayPal's to lose, and Square is just more creative and and came into this world, came into the crypto world much sooner than PayPal did, and much sooner than they even announced. I mean, Jack Dorsey, I think, since the beginning has been studying the same group. This solve our problems and increase access around the world. So yes, it was very interesting, his internationalization strategy is now moving into high gear. So he's looking, I think in many ways he's very idealistic, and is looking at banking being such a critical, banking and property ownership being so critical to the welfare of civilization, and especially in the emerging markets where there are some, again, very unstable regimes, that he's been cogitating on this, and so that's in the DNA of Square for years now, and that's probably why he has the upper hand. In terms of, could this transform into some kind of DAO? Is that where your question is going as well?
It is, but also where the extent in which even mass market adoption of the wallet and the use to do everything with the wallet, right?
Yes.
To purchase a car and negative financing your vehicle right
Yes.
from your wallet.
Yes.
Right? Using
Loans, yeah, for everything. Loans, insurance, payroll deposit, that's what's going to turbocharge Square now, or is turbocharging it. Anything you do financially probably can be done with the wallet. And you cannot imagine, I mean, you've seen the surveys where millennials would prefer to go to the dentist than to a bank. And I think it's true. And I've always hated banks. I've always hated the lions. I haven't even liked ATMs. So, I think we're naturally going to gravitate here with the millennials, leading the charge. So yes. Now, just to give you a sense of the value that will be created here, I don't know the exact numbers now, but I think banks today are worth, on average, about $3,000 per deposit account. We think that digital wallet world will be, it could be 10 times that. If they're successful in integrated commerce as well. So, and it could be even more. So that's what, and this is what banks are being valued in the marketplace today at, and it's because the writing's on the wall. The market tends to take valuations down and turn what once were growth stocks into value stocks. Value often is for a reason. They're going to be disrupted and disintermediated. And we do think that's going to happen.
Okay, Cathie, we got a question over here. Erica, go for it.
Hi, Cathie. I'm Erica. I run a venture fund that invests in blockchain technology. I just did a talk here about DeFi. So everything you're saying is completely on point. But my question is, in watching some of the stuff that you talked about, you think that we're going into a stage of deflation instead of inflation. To me, I kind of see that, what's guaranteed to happen when the crash happens is that some people are going to make it out on top and some people are going to lose everything. So this idea of inflation versus deflation, do you think that certain states, like for example Florida, is going to go through deflation, and then maybe places like New York will go through inflation? Or do you think as a whole, as a country, that we're going to be going through deflation?
Yeah, my background is in both economics and finance, Art Laffer curve and all of that. So I think about economics all the time. And I also, as an investor in innovation, say, okay, what are the headlines blaring right now? Inflation, inflation, inflation. And the numbers coming out are kind of shocking. I will give you that. And we knew that inflation was going to be coming out of the coronavirus, supply chain, base effect, that's done, the base effect, but supply chain, I never expected hoarding to now be taking place because of fear of not getting holiday presents, right? So we've got a lot of short-term dynamics that are pushing prices up, but I'm going to harken back to the Yassine's apartment, right? If you look at millennials, what could be happening is, sure, as they grow wealthier, they'll buy goods and services, which is what GDP measures, but maybe digital assets and other assets, equities and so forth, I've never seen a generation like this, actually. And what we're seeing is that GDP, probably disappointing. In the third quarter, GDP growth was 2%, much lower than expected. All of that was because of inventories, which is, everybody's screaming about inventory, so I found that interesting. Real final sales were slightly down. And I'm beginning to think, could it be, if you have the excessive money out there moving into assets, so stocks, bonds, crypto, housing, if you call that an asset, some people do, some people don't, then it's not going into GDP, which is where you find the measure of inflation, right?
Yeah.
And so the velocity of money is going down. It's not being turned over into goods and services 5 times a year. It's going down, and it has been going down since 08, 09. Whereas before, in the 70s, it was going up consistently because people were watching inflation go up and interest rates go up, and they said, let me buy now before they go high, prices go higher. Let me buy now before interest rates go higher. Now, we might have a little bit of that going on right now, but it's not pervasive. So that's the thinking here. This idea that the velocity of money is coming down, and this new generation, the millennials. In fact, in the 80s, so I'm a boomer, right? And in the 80s, a strategist called Stan Salvigson from Merrill Lynch, he's not with us anymore, but he was great, made one call. The call was, baby boomers have entered their careers for the first time. We're going to be in the bull market for the next 20 years. And he was right. Yeah, we had our interruptions, but he was right. And it was because of the baby boomers. Well, now we're in the echo of the baby boom, the millennials. And we have a person, you may know him because he's very involved in the crypto world, Tom Lee from Fundstrat.
I love him.
He is making the call that we are in a bull market. Now, he's making this call on equities, but I'd say other assets as well, especially crypto, because the millennials have entered their better earning years, and he does not expect the bull market to end until the number of millennials starts to drop. And that, I think, is in 2038.
Wow.
So that's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's an echo of what happened in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
And and that period of time, as you know, is when inflation came down.
Yeah.
And it was for that reason.
All right, last question of the session. JP, front row, go for it.
Thank you.
Hi, Cathie. So I was born as a Gen Xer in my mindset, and through a lot of education as an adult was able to re-emerge myself as a millennial mindset. And I'm wondering, what is your research showing on ways that we can help our children and adults thrive in this new economy that's emerging, so that they can pursue their artistic passions and then also to thrive in this new economy, hopefully sooner than their 30s.
Yeah, no. I'm one of the hypotheses we have in starting the education foundation is that young people can do a lot more, a lot sooner than we give them credit for. And they're going to be teaching you some things, right? And they already are, I'm sure. I don't know how they are. And I'm hearing this, they're instinctively digital in some way. It's crazy, because we don't think of children in that way. So one of the things that I faced as a mother of 3, I have 2 girls and a boy. My son was a big gamer, and he was in Montessori school. And at that time, they said, no gaming, no limit TV. But my instincts were very different. And I was like, huh. Well, first of all, hand tap, eye coordination. But, you know, he's very strategic in his thinking. Now, these are battlefields, and, you know, that's not very good. But anyway, he's very strategic. He's very decisive. I'm telling you, today, I screen for gamers. I want gamers at Ark. I want gamers because of those two. They're decisive, they're strategic, they know what's noise, they get down to the, so that's just a lesson learned as a parent. I went with my instincts, not the Montessori school. And by the way, I have 2 Montessori former heads of school helping me with this, and I told them that story. So I said, we're introducing gaming into this education. So, you know, let them follow their passions. They're gonna guide you, honestly. I really do believe that, if you let them follow their passions.
This has been an amazing session. Lakshmi and Cathie, thank you so much.